Hi friends, in this video I am going to discuss about the continuation of journals and periodicals. First we see the newspaper The Adventurer. It was started by Dr. Johnson in the year 1752. It was a London newspaper. It was published bi-weekly. It was undertaken after the successful conclusion of The Rambler. John Hawkesworth and Samuel Johnson contributed this newspaper continuously. Next we see the newspaper The Critical Review. It was started by Archibald Hamilton in 1756. Tobias Smollett was the editor of this newspaper The Critical Review from 1756 to 1763. This newspaper focused on reviewing books. It was a British publication. Samuel Johnson, David Hume, John Hunter and Oliver Goldsmith were the contributors of this newspaper. Next we see The Idler. It was a series of 103 essays, all but 12 of them published by Dr. Samuel Johnson. It was published in the London Weekly, the Universal Chronicle, between 1758 and 1760. It is likely that the Chronicle was published for the sole purpose of including The Idler, since it had produced only one issue before the series began and ceased publication when it finished. The authors were Thomas Wharton, Johnson, Bennett Langton and Joshua Reynolds. Next we see The Bee. It was a magazine. It was a short-lived British literary magazine. It was started by Oliver Goldsmith on 6th October 1759. In this magazine, Oliver Goldsmith published Citizen of the World and many of his best essays. The last edition of the magazine was published on 24th November 1759. Next we see the periodical The Watchman. The Watchman was a short-lived periodical established and edited by Samuel Taylor Coleridge in March 1796. The first number was promised for 5th February 1796 but actually appeared on 1st March. The periodical was published by Coleridge himself. It was printed at Bristol by Nathaniel Biggs and appeared every 8 days to avoid tax. The publication contained essays, poems, news stories, reports on parliamentary debates and book reviews. Next we see the Edinburgh Review, which was founded by Francis Jeffrey, Sidney Smith and Henry Brougham as a quarterly publication in the year 1802 to 1929. It was a Scottish magazine. It was contributed to the development of the modern periodical and to modern standards of literary criticism. The Edinburgh Review promoted Romanticism and Whig politics. The Edinburgh Review was a strong supporter of the Whig Party and liberal politics and regularly called for political reform. Its main rival was the Quarterly Review, which supported the Tories. The magazine was also noted for its attacks on the Lake poets, particularly William Wordsworth. Scott, Hazlitt and Macaulay were the main associates for this magazine. Next we see The Examiner. It was a weekly paper founded by Leigh Hunt and his brother John Hunt in the year 1808. It had a subtitle which was a Sunday paper on politics, domestic economy and theatricals. The Examiner promoted radical ideas. Byron and Shelley were associated for the weekly paper The Examiner. For the first 50 years, it was a leading intellectual journal expounding radical principles, but from 1865 it repeatedly changed hands and political alliance, resulting in a rapid decline in readership and loss of purpose. Next we see the Quarterly Review, which was a literary and political periodical which was founded in March 1809 in London. This periodical was founded by John Murray. It was ceased publication in the year 1967. It was referred to as the London Quarterly Review as reprinted by Leonard Scott for an American edition. The aim of the Quarterly Review was to counter the influences on public opinion imposed by Edinburgh Review. John Wilson Croker, Robert Southey, Scott and Lamb were associated with it. In 1817, Croker attacked Keats in a review of Endymion as Cockney School of Poets. Sir Walter Scott published a favourable review of Emma written by Jane Austen. Next, we see the Blackwood's magazine, which was a British magazine and miscellany printed between 1817 and 1980. It was founded by the publisher William Blackwood and was originally called the Edinburgh Monthly Magazine. The first number appeared in April 1817 under the editorship of Thomas Pringle and James Clergan. The journal was unsuccessful and Blackwood fired Pringle and Clergan and relaunched the journal as Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine under his own editorship. The journal eventually adopted the shorter name and from the relaunch often referred to itself as MAGA. The title page bore the image of George Buchanan, a 16th century Scottish historian, religious and political thinker. Next, we see Westminster Review. It was started by Jeremy Bentham and James Mill as an organ of the philosophical radicals. It was a quarterly British magazine. James Mill, John Stuart Mill, Mary Shelley, George Eliot, Thomas Huxley, and Herbert Spencer were associated with this. Next magazine is the Athenaeum. It was a British literary magazine. It was published in London, England from 1828 to 1921. It was initiated by James Silk Buckingham. It was sold within a few weeks to Frederick Morris and John Sterling, who failed to make it profitable. In 1829, Charles Wentworth Dilke became part proprietor and editor. He greatly extended the influence of the magazine. In 1846, he resigned the editorship and assumed that of the Daily News of London, but contributed a series of notable articles to the Athenaeum. Its full name, Journal of Literature, Science and Fine Arts. Thomas Hardy, T.S. Eliot, Aldous Huxley, Robert Graves were the contributors of this magazine, the Athenaeum. Next, we have to see the Germ, which was founded by W.M. Rossetti in January 1850 to April 1850. It had a subtitle, Thoughts Towards Nature in Art and Literature. It was associated with Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Only 4 issues were published. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was a group of English painters, poets and art critics founded in 1848 by William Holman Hunt, John Everett Millais, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Michael Rossetti, James Collinson, Frederick George Stephens and Thomas Woolner, who formed a 7-member brotherhood, later known as the Pre-Raphaelites. Next, we have to see Household Works, which was started by Charles Dickens in the year 1850. It was a weekly publication. Its title taken from Henry V of Shakespeare. Dickens said, "We hope to be the comrade and friend of many thousands of people." Next, we see the magazine The Atlantic. It was founded by James Russell Lowell and Francis H. Underwood. The Atlantic is an American magazine and multi-platform publisher. It was founded in 1857 in Boston, Massachusetts as the Atlantic Monthly, a literary and cultural magazine that published leading writers' commentary on education, the abolition of slavery, and other major political issues of the time. Jeffrey Goldberg was the editor of this magazine. Emerson, Longfellow, Harriet Beecher Stowe were also associated with this. It features articles in the fields of politics, foreign affairs, business and the economy, culture and the arts, technology and science. Next, we see All the Year Round. It was a Victorian periodical. It was being a British weekly literary magazine founded and owned by Charles Dickens. It was published between 1859 and 1895 throughout the United Kingdom. It was a weekly magazine. A Tale of Two Cities was serialized in this magazine. A famous line from Othello is written before the title, "The story of our lives from year to year." Next, we see Poetry, a magazine of verse. It was founded by Harriet Monroe in 1912 till present. It was an American magazine. The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock was first appeared here. Robert Frost, Hilda Doolittle were famous faces associated with this. Next, we have to see The Egoist, an individual review. It was founded by Dora Mostanin in the year 1914. It was last toured in the year 1919. Eliot's Tradition and Individual Talent was appeared in this journal, and also James Joyce, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, and Ulysses were published in this magazine. Next, we see The Blast. It was founded by Wyndham Lewis in the year 1914, and it was lasted in the year 1915. It was a manifesto of Vorticism in Britain. It was a movement inspired by Cubism. It was edited by Ezra Pound. Next, we see The Criterion. It was started by T.S. Eliot in the year 1922. It was lasted in the year 1939. It was a monthly publication. The Wasteland, which was written by T.S. Eliot, was published here. E.M. Foster, W.B. Yeats, Virginia Woolf, Ezra Pound were associated with this journal. Next, we see The Scrutiny, a quarterly review. It was founded by F.R. Lewis and I.C. Knights in the year 1932, and it was lasted in the year 1953. William Emerson, I.A. Richards, Herbert Reed were associated with this. Next, we have to see The New Free Woman. It was founded by Harriet Shaw Weaver in the year 1913. It was lasted in the same year 1913. It was a monthly publication. Next, The Miscellany. It was a periodical. It was founded by Writers Workshop. Writers Workshop was founded by P. Lal in the year 1958. In Writers Workshop, P. Lal promoted Indian writers to write in English and translate classic works into English. The last one, TESOL Quarterly. TESOL Quarterly is a peer-reviewed academic journal published by Wiley Blackwell on behalf of TESOL International Association. It covers English language teaching and learning, standard English as a second dialect, including articles on the psychology and sociology of language learning and teaching, professional preparation, curriculum development, and testing and evaluation. These are the important journals and periodicals. If it is useful for you, you have to like, comment and share, and never forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching.